Sometimes reflection can make you feel like, wow, I really thought that I would have had all of these things done. I thought I would have been further along. I thought I would have accomplished a lot more than I have at this point. I wanted to talk about this today because I've been doing this vision board with me series. And up until this point, we've talked about your goals, the things you have accomplished in the past year, in the years prior. What goals and dreams do you still have? How much progress you're making? And you know what? It's a lot of reflection. And I want to tell you, you are absolutely not behind, especially birthdays, and we're doing exercises like this. It can be really easy for us to start to beat ourselves up that we're not as far ahead as we think we should be. So, I want to talk about my story and also share that I don't have most of the things that people would say, oh, that's what I believe a successful person looks like. But I know that for sure I'm living my best life, and that's because I've decided what my best life looks like, not what anybody else has decided. Every bit of the dreams that I created 10 years ago, I'm getting to live them right now. In addition to continuing to evolve and build the dreams that I have in the future, I'm exactly where I need to be. And so this video is for Black women who want to live their best life now, regardless of your partner status, regardless of how far along you think you should be on your dreams, regardless of all the shoulds that are making you feel like you should be doing this, that, and the other. Let's just take all of that away and actually get down to what is your best life and how can you start living it right now. So, hey, I'm Rashida. I am a life coach for Black women, corporate professionals, and entrepreneurs who are sick and tired of being burnt out and want to create a work less, live more lifestyle. So, on this channel, I talk about letting go of workaholism, practical ways to create the softer life that we want, using vision to redefine success, and living my passions like eating good food, traveling, and physical wellness. So, if all of that sounds good to you, I would love for you to take a second right now to subscribe to this channel. I would love to keep doing this journey with you. Let's talk in the comments. Let's talk about all the topics, all the things. I am turning 40 this Friday on March 22nd, and I am single. And while I would like to be married and while I would like to find a partner, I've been really blessed that I recognize that living my happiness, living my best life was more about me figuring out who I am, how I wanted to show up in the world, fostering relationships that were going to help me really build that, and going after the things that bring me joy rather than making all the cultural things that I should have a priority. It's really easy to get on a path that you don't even actually want to be on because you just keep doing the next best thing, the next best thing, because we haven't actually stopped and made an intentional decision and said, what do I actually? So before I get too far into this video, I want to give a shout out to one of my favorite creators here on YouTube. Her name is Stephanie Perry. I would love for you to check out this video she created. It is called I'm a 49-year-old Black woman with no husband. Here's how I feel my life. She brought up so many amazing points in that video that writing a comment just wasn't sufficient. So I decided go ahead and create a whole video about it. And that's exactly what I want to talk about here. I'm turning 40 this Friday. I'm single. I don't own a house. I don't own a car. I travel all the time, so I'm technically homeless. And I don't believe I'm behind by any shape of the imagination. So if I don't feel like I'm behind, why would you feel like you're behind? Maybe it's because you got a lot of things that you feel like you should do. So why don't we take some time and carve away all of the things that we think we should do? And let's just get down to what is it that we want to do. So this video is for Black women who are feeling like they're behind, but really don't want to be behind and are looking for a way to live their best life right now. I want to show you how I've gotten to this place where I am super happy with my life and the direction that it's going in hopes that it'll make you feel like you're not behind either. Cause you're so when I think about all of the things that I just put on my vision board for this year, as I said, there's a lot of things that I don't. So how is it that I feel like I'm not behind? Well, when I look at my vision board and I look at my 10-year vision and the things that I wrote on my vision board, I know that I am well on my way to accomplishing all of those things. In addition to, I know that the life that I'm living right now is a manifestation of the long-term vision that I had 10, actually at this point it would be 14 years ago. I just felt like there was more fulfillment that I wanted, and I actually wanted more freedom to be a part of the lives of my friends and family, and they were spread out all around the world, and I was missing out on the opportunities to really be in the places and do the things that I wanted to do because I was tied down in this job. Now, I'm not saying that every person needs to go quit their job and live a life that I live, but I'm saying that for me, I recognized at that point that I, number one, wanted more fulfillment. And number two, I wanted more lifestyle freedom. And so I started creating vision boards as a way of getting those dreams out of my head and down onto paper because I knew that the more that I wrote it down on paper, the more that I could clarify it, the more that I could add more detail to it, and once I added more detail and all of those things, the more that I would actually be able to take action on it because it just flying around in my mind had me more loopy and more overwhelmed than actually being able to take action on it. So that's the number one reason why I say that if you are feeling behind right now, if you have taken the time to do the steps that I had in this Vision Board with Me series, not only are you not behind, you have literally quantum leaped your ability to actualize every single dream that you have. Because when it's floating around in your head, we're not good at breaking it down from this high level vision into actionable steps. It's too much flying around in your head to be able to do that. You actually need to get it down on paper because it makes it so much more simple. And I like to think about it in the way of, there's a quote that says, "How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time." Well, you gotta get it in order to start eating the elephant, you gotta get a knife, you gotta get a fork, you gotta get the elephant, you gotta get all the things that you need, and if it's just in your mind, you're not necessarily thinking as clearly to how you're going to do it because you're so overwhelmed by the thought that there's an elephant standing in front of you. Before having it down on paper, I believe that my dreams, my aspirations, a lot of the things that I knew I wanted to do, it was like I had a beautiful canvas in front of me and I knew that it had colors and dimension and it was a dynamic picture, but it was pixelated. And when you have a pixelated picture, you can't really see exactly what it is. You could just see these little squares and they're not really overlapping. They're not really blending in a way that shows you what the big picture looks like. And so before getting things down on paper, I had a mentally pixelated picture of what I wanted my life to look like. But after I got it down on paper, it was like all of that pixelation cleared up, and I now had a 1080p 4K HD picture of what I wanted my life to look like. And then it made it so much easier to break it down into systems, into daily action that I could do every day to build that life. And that's led me to do some of the things that I do right now. For example, I paid off all my debt. I went from having $69,000 in debt to paying it off completely 0 in 2.5 years and going to Dave Ramsey and doing my total money makeover debt-free scheme to going to travel the world as a missionary for 3 years to coming back and starting a business and even learning to evolve that business. All of that has been so much easier every time that I put stuff down on paper. Now, I'm not saying this as if I'm perfect because sometimes I'll get really caught up in the thinking. I'm such a thinker. I get so caught up in the thinking that it overwhelms me, and then I freak out, and then I recognize, "Oh, I'm freaking out because I'm trying to do too much in my head and I need to get it out of my head and down on paper. So then when I do that, it's like having the box from a puzzle and now being able to see all the puzzle pieces and starting putting the puzzle together versus when I don't get it down on paper, I don't have the cover of the puzzle box. And so it's hard for me to see the picture that I'm creating. So when I get to the point that I have that picture, now it's easy to just put those puzzle pieces together. So creating that picture on the box is exactly what it looks like to create a clear vision of what is going to make my life fulfilling. So that begs the question, how did I decide what a full life looks like for me if, all of those things that I felt like I should do were no longer the core of anything? They were gone. I will tell you, it took a lot of unlearning, and one of the practical ways that I did that was I started by not really knowing what I wanted. It's like it's funny, when someone finally asks you what you want, you're like, I don't even know." And so, I had to go through this process where I wrote a list of here's all the things I don't want. It was so much easier for me to write a list of the things that I don't want. I don't want to be locked to this job where I have to be in this office from 9 to 5 every day. I don't want to have to ask for time off. I don't want my earning ability to be dictated or have to be approved by somebody else. I don't want to have to trade my vacation days for helping my mom when I also want to have vacation and help my mom. I shouldn't have to do one or the other based on the vacation days that a job gives me. A matter of fact, I don't even want to ask for days off. When I need to go, I want to be able to have the autonomy to do that. I want the ability to be in Long Beach, looking at palm trees, eating great vegan food one day. And then when my mom calls me the next day and we have a family emergency, that I'm able to go and take care of that without having to ask, "Hey, I just had this happen. I need a day off or a week off," and not having to decide, am I going to have to give up, going on vacation that I already had planned for that week? Or am I going to have to give up the time to go see my mom? Or do I go see my mom and just not get paid for this week because you're not going to give me PTO? I don't want to have to make any of those decisions. That was just the top of the list of the things that I didn't wanna deal with anymore. And so as I started making that list of things that I didn't want to deal with, and then it made it easier for me to start making a complementing list that said, "Okay, what is the opposite of the things that I don't want to do?" So on that other list, then I started writing, I want the autonomy to choose how I spend my time and when I work. I already know that I work hard. I know that I'm gonna get things done. So I want to work either in a place where they trust me or to be able to build my own business where I can do that. And I started to create that whole list of, okay, this is what I want. And from that, I stood back and looked at it and I found a theme that what I said earlier, the main theme that I wanted was that I wanted fulfillment. I made great money at my job, but I didn't go to work and feel like I actually made an impact on anybody. And when I look back at it now, I realize that job only used a really small part of who I was, a really small part of my skills, of my identity, because it was just based on what they wanted for their company. It wasn't based on me being able to show up and do all the things that I'm good at doing and finding fulfillment and being able to show up in a well-rounded way. So I wanted fulfillment and I wanted a job or a business that was going to allow me to do that. And I also wanted the lifestyle freedom to be able to live any and everywhere at any time that I wanted, anywhere in the world, so that I could see my friends and family and be physically a part of their lives. I'm really blessed that I have friends and family everywhere. And I didn't want to have to pick and choose that I could only spend time with this one. I didn't want to have to say no because my job said that I had to be working versus being able to go and be exactly where I wanted to be when I wanted to do that. So I remember when I started making this transition, I really didn't tell a lot of people what I wanted my life to look like. I just kinda kept that close to my heart and started creating the list. Because at the end of the day, there's always someone that says, well, that doesn't make any sense. Well, why do you want that? I would never want that. So then the other thing that I've had people say, like when I did actually start sharing, okay, I've been traveling, I've been a missionary, and there's two sides of it. The people at home were very encouraging and were like, yes, this is amazing. I was doing this as a missionary. So I was raising funds. A lot of people donated. A lot of people bought t-shirts, sweet potato pies, all in helping me fund this mission to go serve Jesus around the world. And so I was really blessed in that. But then I also had the other people who were like, well, it must be nice. And I think what was interesting to me about that was like, I felt like they were putting me on a pedestal as if they could not do the same thing. And I'm like, but you can. When I heard somebody say it must be nice, it was almost saying, well, I guess I could never do that. And that made me sad because it made me realize that we are so likely to hold ourselves back rather than believing you really can do all of these things and more. And, it starts with us believing for ourselves that we actually can do it. There's still so much further to go. There's still so many chapters in my book to write. All I have to do is be willing to write it and not hold my own self back. Because 9 times out of 10, I was the one that was getting in my way. I've got to the point whenever I see friends and family, the first question is, where are you today? Because I've been traveling that much over pretty much since 2016. Gosh, I just realized that's going on 8 years now. So for the last 8 years, I've been traveling pretty consistently. And even before that, I still love to travel, but I've been traveling pretty regularly since then. And so with that, though, there's this love hate relationship that, if you're not careful, you can over romanticize travel. I still very much love it. But the way that I was traveling before, I had sold most of my belongings. I didn't have an apartment. Like I said, I was technically homeless. And I'm at this point where I'm going to continue to travel because that's just who I am. Even when I finally find someone that I do want to partner with, if he's not into traveling, he ain't the partner for me because that's not something that I intend to give up. And I intend to take my children to do those things as well because that's how my mom got me into all of these things. So that's one. Continuing to travel probably for the rest of my life is one of the things that I will find fulfilling in my life. But at this point in my life, I also very clearly want to create a home base. I remember at one point, my car was in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. My belongings were in Denver, Colorado. I just was stretched out across the nation, so having a home base is all about me being able to bring my life into one spot and allow that to be the place that I always come back to. And that was actually really hard for me to decide. So part of the reason that I had stuff in all of those different places was mainly because I hadn't decided where I wanted to create this home place to be. I hate calling it settling down because I love adventure way too much to ever believe that I will settle down. I'm not going to settle down. I think that's another part that makes my life feel fulfilling is that I can continue to go on adventures. I love adventures. They're my favorite. So yeah, creating a home base, being able to continue to travel, having lifestyle freedom where I can go and visit friends and family, where I can workcation or just straight up vacation any and everywhere in the world without having to find a new job or having to upturn how I make money and still being able to have multiple incomes coming in while I'm doing all the things that I love to do. And even allowing those things to be how I get money to come in. Now, I know there's been a trend where people are like, not everybody can live your dream life. Okay. If you want to choose to believe that, you believe that limiting belief. But if it's up to me, if you're here, I want to tell you, while everybody else is believing that, you don't believe that. You would go ahead and say, okay, well, maybe that's you, but I'm going to be that person who builds a life out of the things that I love and get paid for it because I deserve that. Like, if you don't actually believe that it can happen, no wonder it's not happening. I had to choose to believe this is gonna happen for me, and I've been working my behind off to make it happen, but it's been worth it because in the midst of doing that, I've already been living the fulfillment and the lifestyle freedom that I want to live. What allows me to live this life? At this point, I work as a contractor for another coach. So I work fully remote and I love what she does in her business. And that brings some fulfillment in addition to getting paid. In addition to, I also have my own business that I had told you guys about where I help workaholics create work life balance and lifestyle freedom because I understand how hard that transition can be. So those 2 things, I'm working on building my YouTube channel and some other things that are helping round out my different levels of income streams. So, yes, this is what allows me to live that life. In addition to, I just do life differently. I don't mind having a housemate. I don't mind, owning an old car. I don't mind I don't mind paying off all my debt. I don't mind living my life in a way that allows my finances to have room. As I talk about some of the things that I want, a lot of times I see people get caught up in like, I could never do that because you have this expectation that you need more, that it has to be bigger. You've never had enough. But I would challenge you to ask yourself, what is enough? For me, enough is I am gonna buy a car, but it's gonna be paid off in cash, and it's really just for me to get back and forth. I want to have a tiny house because I don't need more to clean. I would rather have a luxury, cute little destination that's close to my friends and family. My best friend and her family here in Charlotte, they have an amazing 12-acre property that we've already put a plot aside for me to put my tiny house there. And that's going to be my home base while from traveling to come back here while I continue to travel, live my best life. And I also get to be next to my closest human. She's also an entrepreneur, and I'm a quick drive away to get to my family. Those were the parameters and things. This is what I want freedom to look like for me. And having that remote business and doing remote work as a contractor is what allows me to live that life. So going back to the idea that you might feel behind. You might feel like your house is not big enough, that your car is old, that you need to make more money, that you've got to wait till your kids graduate and go to college, that you might need to get married first before you do these things. You have all of these things that you feel like you should do, but when you take all of those things away and think to yourself, if your car runs, it's doing great. If you have a roof over your head and that's less stress on your finances, that gives you more flexibility in your finances to go do other things that you wanna do, to be able to take your child or your family on trips around the world so that they can be exposed to just how big the world is and that they can go and explore. How much more is that? And so are you really behind? Or is it that nothing is ever enough for you? Like, when do you decide that you are enough for you, that what you have is enough, and that you don't have to want more stuff. Instead, you get to want more life. Because I found for myself, the more that I wanted more stuff, that's what made me work harder. That's what made me feel like I had to keep going back to this job. When I was in debt, I couldn't just leave my job because I had bills to pay. I had people to pay back. I'd already bought stuff that wasn't paid for, and I had to be responsible for paying it back. But when I was debt free, it was literally a physical release of stress off of my shoulders, off of my body. And I had the freedom to say, I actually can do something completely different than everything that I've done before. And I can choose for myself. And I would actually say that's probably been the tipping point when I stopped feeling behind. Because the only way you could feel behind is if you're trying to keep up with the Joneses. And I decided I didn't wanna keep up with the Joneses anymore because the Joneses were in more debt and more drama and were steeped in all of the things that I decided I no longer wanted to prioritize in my life. So when I tipped away from that and said, I don't even want those things anymore. I'm not going after those things anymore. I'm going to go in this complete other direction is when I realized I stopped feeling behind and I start creating my vision and my vision board around that. So once I decided that this process that I've been taking you through to create your vision board was like one of the first iterations of what I've done to create a long-term vision for my life. And creating a long-term vision is really important because it's putting a destination in the map and saying, this is where I want to take my life. And it started with, I would say that when I stopped trying to keep up with the Joneses, I redefined my identity from trying to be what America felt a good Black woman should be to actually just deciding who I want to be as a Black woman and showing up in that way. And then once I had that, I was able to put down on paper what does it look like for me to live that manifestation of myself that I've defined for myself? How do I live that every day? And so once I had that, then the next thing was how do I stay on track to always doing that? And that's where life systems really came into play for me. I knew that shifting my life wasn't gonna happen overnight. Just quitting my job was not enough. I still struggle with mindsets where I felt like I had to be behind a desk and I could only work at this specific schedule. And I had all of these different mindset things that I needed to let go of. So it's been so much of an unlearning to allow my fullest self to bloom. And so my life systems were really huge at keeping me accountable to what I said I wanted to create and keeping me on track to doing the work that was going to shift my life. Because otherwise, it was way too easy to default back into, well, I could just do the next best thing. Well, the next best thing was not going to be what I needed to get me to where I wanted my life to be. At the end of the day, all of the things that I felt like I should be doing, when I finally let them go, my life has been 10 times better without them. Yes, some of those things are things that I want, but I don't want them because I feel like I should want them. And I definitely don't want them to manifest in the way the majority of America would say their life needs to look. For example, I don't need a massive mansion of a house. I'm quite happy with 340 square feet in the tiny house that I look forward to buying. I'm quite happy with getting a car. I do want to buy a hybrid car because I want to leave a better footprint on the world, but it's not because I need to have the next best car. Like it's more about the values that I live and making sure that every single one of my decisions lives from my values and how I want to show up in the world rather than doing anything that cultural outside expectation says that I feel like I should do. So carving your own path is hard. It's really easy to just want to get pulled back to what you were doing before because you've done that before. You already know what that looks like. You don't have to be out of your comfort zone. You don't have to try something new. You don't have to make as many mistakes. But on the other side of that is the freedom that you've always wanted. So how did I create support to get there? It's been my community. Otherwise, I have to be honest, there are plenty of times that I wanted to stop. Plenty of times that I was like, man, I could just go back to my corporate job. And I'm not gonna lie, sometimes I still have those thoughts, but when I have those thoughts, I go to my community and they remind me, hey, everything that you're doing has worth, has value. It's changing someone's life. It's carving a new path, not just for them, but for me. I am literally getting to build the things that I want to build. And it's worth it to get out of my comfort zone to be able to get to that place. So, without my community, the women who continue to encourage me, and I say this in the context that for so long we've thought that we've needed a husband to be able to support the things that we want to do, to be able to uphold the family or even uphold us, even though we've seen that that's not always the case. So instead of allowing that to be the should that keeps us from going after our life, when I decentered that and actually said, you know what? I actually want to lean into the community of women who have always had my back, who have always encouraged me, who have always supported me in going forward. I decided I want to lean into them. And that has been the foundation that has helped me take leaps and bounds forward into creating the life that I want to live. I think sometimes We downplay the relationships with women because we've been told that we're catty and we're petty and that women don't get along and that we can't show up and support each other. All of those things are a lie. And here's the thing, even if you've seen it happen, it's probably because those women were believing those lies too. But what does it look like to actually change that? What does it look like to do it differently? I believe that's us choosing that that's not the narrative that we have to live by and actually creating a different life. And actually coming into communities like this, like the one that Perry has, and being the person that we want to see in the community, knowing that all of us are all coming together. I mean, she has a massive community of like 100 and something followers, 1,000 followers, not 100 and something followers, 100 and something thousand followers of women who all believe the same thing. Is it not beautiful to be a part of a community like that? That is what has kept me going and gets me super excited about where we're all going to go. I mean, that in itself, when each and every one of those 157,000 women show up as their best selves, living their best lives, not being bogged down by shoulds, and really just being the fullness of who they are, that is changing the world. And all they had to do was show up and be their own light. Like, that is amazing. That gets me crazy excited. That's who I want to be. That's how I want to show up. And that is the why behind why I do my business, helping us make this shift and giving us practical steps to take it the whole way, starting from redefining our identity, redefining our success, and then living the systems to help us build that life. That is exactly what gets me excited because I know on the other side of that, when we show up as our fullest self and give that to the world, all we had to do was just show up and be who we are. That's what's changing the world to be better. So I know it can be easier said than done to just leave all of the things that you've been groomed to do your whole life. You've been groomed your whole life to buy a house. You've been groomed your whole life to buy a car. You've been groomed your whole life to get a steady job or a good job, a good paying job. How do you just leave all of those things behind and say, I want to try something different? Like, what is the tipping point? What makes you realize that there's got to be a better way? The tipping point for me was paying off the debt. And I really love the way that Stephanie Perry says it. She says, what one dream is going to help you fulfill all of your other dreams? Taking a year and not working tends to be a pivotal point for a lot of Black women because work has been so central to our lives, central to our identities. And once we strip that away, we get a chance to start fresh, refresh, rebuild, and restore. I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. And here's the caveat that I add to that. I would say the biggest step for me, the one dream that like really pushed every other dream over the edge was paying off all of my debt because then I didn't need the job. I needed the job until then, or else I probably would have quit a long time ago. But I had student loans to pay. I had a little bit of credit card debt. I had a car loan. All of that money, $69,000 worth of debt, made it so that I had to go to work so that I could pay that debt off in order for me to be able to live. So that one dream that made everything else open up, that made everything else available to me was paying off my debt. But there's a mindset in America that says debt is normal. Lies. It's not normal. It's not. It's just that we've been sucked into being a consumer for so long. They're telling us to exchange our soul to get stuff. And it was this unlearning for me that I'm not willing to sell my soul to get a new car. Like I'm not willing to sell my soul to buy more furniture, to get an iPhone, to all of those things. And I'm not perfect. I struggle with sometimes wanting things faster or wanting more things that I can afford at that moment. But that discipline to not give into that has created so much freedom on the other side because now I'm not bogged down. The amount of money that I need to live off is way closer to here now that I don't have that anymore versus when I had all of that and I had to make enough money up into this level to even be able to survive, let alone to eat after paying all of those bills. So that is the dream that changed everything for me. And I guess I want to ask this question to you. I want to repeat Stephanie's question. What is the one dream? What is one dream that is going to help you fulfill all of your other dreams? Is that taking a year to not work? Going after each one of those dreams, from first paying off debt, then spending a year traveling as a missionary, then spending another year traveling partially as a missionary, but also working in a missions organization, to doing a leadership academy in another country. All of those experiences taking me out of my comfort zone, taking me out of the American mindset and allowing myself to redefine what I wanted life to be about and really figuring out what I wanted was a huge evolution of creating more and more freedom in my life. And so I encourage every single person to dream about what is that dream that is going to just catapult you, that's going to quantum leap you into all of these things. And you might not know how far it's going to take you now, but just start with that one dream. You don't need to have everything figured out to get started. Just what's the thing right now that's so deep on your heart that you're like, if I could just do this one, I know it would change my life. What is that? That's what I want you to put on your vision board. And that's what I want you to go back to the beginning of this vision board with me series and dream about that through this whole process with just that one dream. Because if you do that one dream and you go through all of those things, it is going to open you up to so much more going forward. So, yeah, that's a bit of my story, what has changed my life, and how vision boards redefining success and life systems has been the core to helping me accomplish all of those things. I hope that through all of this that you no longer feel behind. I hope that you can see that even though I don't have all the things that people would say make my life bit living my best life, or I don't have a lot of things that people say that I should have, but none of those things actually fulfilled me, and I still know that I'm clearly not behind. I love the life that I live, and I love the life that I continue to build, but that all starts with letting go of those and redefining success and then building that. So if that sounds good to you, make sure that you subscribe to this channel. This is the kind of topics that I always want to be talking about so we can dream together, we can unlearn together and continue to build the lives that we love. If you're in a place that you're ready to work less and live more, I would love for you to check out my free webinar so that I can go a little deeper into all of the steps that I have done. I'm going to go into all the details of how I've created this work less, live more lifestyle. And that's going to give you the plan to be able to do the same. So I'm going to put that link in the description. That webinar is called How to Work Less and Live More Without Being a Millionaire. So make sure you check that out. So throughout this video, I've talked about so many times how getting debt free was a huge part of my journey to really get me into a place where I started learning all the things that I should do and to start redefining what I want success to look like or what I wanted my life to be about. If you're ready to jumpstart your debt freedom journey, I would love to get a workaholic exit plan call with you. It's a free call. We'll talk about where you are today, where you're trying to take your life, and then we'll work through a plan right there on the call that you can take it and execute on your own. And if you're like, hey, I don't want just a plan, I want help, then we can talk about what that looks like to work together as well. But either way, I'm really passionate about seeing every single one of us Black women be able to create a life that we love. And we don't have to wait till we're retired, nor do we have to be a millionaire in order to live that life. You can live it right now. So here's a quick recap. Yep, I am turning 40 this Friday, and I'm living my best life. Even though I'm single, I don't own a house, I don't own a car, or any of the other things that people say I should have. So then how the heck did I do that? How do I define that I'm living my best life? Well, I was able to redefine my identity without work being the core of it. I dreamed about living my best life without work being the center because I knew that I wanted more than just to go to work. And I got really detailed on the clarity that it took for me to build the life that I wanted to live 10 years from now. And then I started building that. So then I started setting up life systems to build it. And from that, it was like one step at a time, shifting my life And now I'm living the dreams that I had 10 years ago. So this is the process that allowed me to be turning 40 this Friday and not feel behind. It's been crazy freeing. It's so freeing to not be bogged down by doing things that other people think that I should do and instead living a life that I want to live. And I want that for everybody because, as I said, when we each get to show up fully as ourselves, live the life that we choose for ourselves, we become a light. And that light just grows and shines brightly on so many people. And that light is what changes the world. So I want that for you too. So you might be turning a milestone age, or maybe you're just like, you know what? I'm ready for a lifestyle change. I just want you to know that you're not behind. No matter what you feel like you thought you should be doing, you are exactly where you need to be to build the life that you want. All right, you guys, have a great evening. I look forward to talking to you in the next video. Thanks for watching.